Steve.
I will.
So let me show you what I did real
On this place, I'll try to. All right, are we ready for the jury? Anything we need to take up before we bring the jury in? We are ready for the jury. This is, those are the instructions. I need to save those. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are now ready to resume. I think the defense is ready to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we call Charlie Webb.
If you'll step up, please, raise your right hand and face our clerk to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I'll do.
See this chair right here, speak directly in that microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Webb. Would you introduce yourself to the court and spell your last name, please?
Charles Webb, W-E-B-B.
Mr. Webb, do you know the defendant in this case, Stephen Wiggins?
Yes, since he's been born.
And do you know his mother, Juanita Wiggins?
Yes,
And did you know his father, Scott Wiggins?
yes.
All right. How is it that you came to know Juanita and Scott Wiggins?
Grew up around Juanita. Met Scott after they got together
Do you recall when that might have been that you met Scott?
in the 80s.
At the time you met them, were they already a couple?
Yes,
Okay. And you mentioned that you know Stephen. Do you know his brother, Scotty, as
Yes.
well? Okay. And you said you've known Stephen since he was born.
yes, sir.
All right. I want to ask you, going back, when you first met Scott Wiggins, was that before Stephen was born?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I want to say Juanita was pregnant with Scotty. somewhere around that time.
Okay. Can you just give the jury and the court your recollections briefly about Scott Wiggins? When you first met him, did you get an impression of him?
When we first met, I was married to my wife in '79, and Juanita and Scott was somewhere around the same time. But anyway, Juanita brought Scott out and introduced him and everything, and we started fishing a little bit together. And over the years, you know, we fished together and kind of, you know, stayed in coffee fishing and stuff like that. We was there, you know, wasn't over there every day or nothing like that, but we seen a lot of the way the kids was raised.
And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. I want to ask you a few more questions about Scott Wiggins, Stephen's
Okay.
father, okay? Did you ever know Scott to have a job?
No, sir. I mean, part-time job. Longest job that I know of them ever having, driving a cab, and this was after Juanita had left them, and that didn't last a month at a time.
Do you know what he did for money when him and Juanita were together?
Waited on Juanita. Juanita supported that family.
Okay.
She cleaned the house and done what she could to provide. Scott fished 7 days a week if he could. Now, he would sell fish, but you're not getting nothing out of fish.
So was it your impression then that Scott never did actually provide for his family?
No, he didn't provide. Juanita done all the providing.
You mentioned that you knew that Juanita cleaned houses. Do you know if she had other jobs as well?
Like I said, she done whatever she could to support the family. You know,
Did they ever have, would you say that family ever had money?
no, sir.
Would they have been considered poor?
Yes.
Did you ever notice anything about Juanita, like what she wore or didn't wear that
Yeah,
led you to that conclusion?
I've seen her go to work with holes in her tennis shoes on the sides of them, just so he'd have gas money to go fishing. You know, his cigarettes and his Mountain Dew. He carried a 2-liter Mountain Dew all the time. So, yeah, I've seen her do without so he could go fishing.
Did they have an automobile?
Yeah,
Was she allowed to drive it?
yeah, but she'd have to take him fishing before she went to work and make sure she was back when it was time to pick him up.
Did you ever know of any times when he wouldn't let her have the car just so he could have it so he could go fishing?
Yeah, I've seen her walk to work when she worked at the hosier mill, just so he could go fishing or do what he wanted to.
And you mentioned that you knew Scott Wiggins as the father of Stephen and Scotty.
Yes, sir.
What did you observe, if anything, about how he treated the boys?
He didn't treat them like a father would. You know, if they come, you know, someone come over, he'd run them to the bedroom. You know, he didn't get outside with them.
When you say,
Most of the time, they weren't allowed outside.
when you say them, you're talking about
Both of them.
Stephen and Scotty weren't allowed outside.
Right.
And he would run those boys as
They'd
his two
run them
sons.
to the bedroom.
Okay.
You know, and it wasn't go to the bedroom and find you something to do. Get in there, and I'll knock your head off, or, you know. And Scott was the kind of guy, he would have done it. And he just, he grew up poor and ignorant, and that's the way he acted.
You mentioned that he would threaten the boys, "I'll knock your head off." Did you hear him make other threats to the boys over the years?
Well, you know what I'm saying, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, get in there before I key, or, you know, pick up something and beat your brains out. And like I said, Scott wasn't all there. And I don't know what kind of childhood he had, but he didn't bring nothing to the table for his.
You mentioned these threats that he made. Is this something that was an isolated incident? We're talking about this is one or two times their whole childhood, or was this the normal?
I've seen it many a times. Many a times. I just, I felt sorry for the kids, at times. And I've got a son of my own and raising a grandson. I take him fishing every opportunity I could, or hunting, but if they went fishing, they'd have to sit on the bank so he could fish and be quiet so he didn't scare the fish. That's not taking your kids fishing.
Did you ever observe Scott Wiggins also threatening his wife or the mother of his children, Juanita?
Yeah, but I've never seen them hit her. I'll just say that. I've never seen them strike kids. But the way he talked to them and the way he done them wasn't a father figure. It was an intimidator. You know what I mean? Because he kept the boys intimidated. And I've never seen him physically harm Juanita, but I'm sure she was intimidated because she got out there and worked 6 days a week to provide for them.
Would it be often the occasion that Juanita Wiggins would be at work and Scott would be at home alone with the boys?
Yes.
And
Yes, if he wasn't fishing, he was definitely home with the boys.
And so he would have been the only parent that was around him
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You mentioned a moment ago that Scott Wiggins was the kind of man that would have done it.
Yeah.
Would have assaulted or hurt him. You didn't have any doubt about that?
I have no doubt whatsoever.
And what do you base that on?
One time I went to his mother's and picked him up to go fishing. There was a boy that owed him a little bit of money apparently. Had walked across the road to check the mail. And he asked me, he said, "Man, you think I can hit him in the head?" I said, "Go for it." And I thought, nah. If the boy hadn't have ducked, he would have killed him because it had to shave his head. He was so close. As a 20-ounce drink bottle. I'm driving 55, 60 mile an hour, and before I could stop him, he'd done slung it.
So let me make sure I understand the story you're telling. So you were driving a car,
I'm driving the car, we're headed fishing.
and Scott Wiggins
This
is
boy walks across the road, and he said, "You think I can hit him, or you dare me to hit him?" I go for it. I thought, he's just full of it. And before I could say nope, he done slung it. And I reckon the boy had owed him a little bit of money. But yeah, he had there was no fear whatsoever about killing somebody, because I thought he'd done killed him. I mean, it scared me to death.
Were there any other instances like that you're aware of involving Scott Wiggins?
He shot his brother once.
You were aware of that?
Yeah. And shot his brother. I know when one right there when Juanita left him, he chased her and the boys with a gun and had threatened to kill them. And
Now, I think a long time ago you had told me something interesting about that. Did you actually listen to the police responding to that call?
Yeah, my wife listened to the police scanner all the time back in. And yeah, we listened to what was going on because it was less than 2 miles from the house.
And so you actually heard on the police scanner this incident where Scott Wiggins was chasing them through the woods?
He's out there in the woods hiding, trying to find him.
Regarding the Wiggins house, where they lived, I know they lived a couple of places, but did you ever notice anything unusual about the inside of the Wiggins house?
They grew up in, hard. I mean, Juanita done the best she could. Clothes may have been piled up in the bedrooms, but I mean, she kept it clean. It just, an old house with paneling on the walls, you know what I mean? the kids really didn't have TV to watch. You know, nothing, you know, what they done in their rooms, what they come up with.
Did you ever observe any, I guess, for lack of a better word, paranoid behavior on Scott's part, like covering
Oh,
windows
yeah.
or anything? What did you observe?
Well, you know, if you sat around and Scott wouldn't, like I said, he didn't work. And if he couldn't go fishing, he was the kind of guy that, I know there one time he made a blowgun and made darts out of pieces of steel and paper. Actually go through sheetrock. But if he heard a car door shut, you know, where somebody come get him. So he's jumping up, looking out the window. They kept blankets over the windows and stuff.
And you mentioned that he didn't really let Scotty and Stephen go out of the house, out of his sight.
No, they didn't. They didn't grow up like normal children.
Did you ever notice any other children allowed to come over and see them or play with them or anything like that?
No. My kids were about the same age. They really didn't come over much. You know,
Did you have reservations about letting your kids go over there with Scott Wiggins?
I wasn't scared about Scott doing anything around me as far as that goes. We didn't treat our kids like that. I didn't want them to see nothing like that.
And when you say
Yeah.
like that, what are you referring to?
Cousin, you know what I mean? Threatening, you know, cussing and stuff. I didn't want my kids to see, you know, I didn't want to have to explain why he talked to his kids like that. So,
Did you have an explanation for why he talked to his kids like that?
no, sir. I didn't want to try to think of something to try to tell my, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to try to have to explain something like that to my children.
Did you ever notice anything about Scott as far as his sleep patterns or anything like that? Is he kind of guy
Yeah,
that?
Scott stay up 2 or 3 days at a time. Easy. You know, a fish is biting. He's fishing. And we done a lot of nighttime fishing, you know, over the years. But if fish was biting, or he thought he could catch fish, Scott fished 7 days a week. You know, he'd come home, clean his fish, or throw him in the bathtub, clean him when he got up, but he'd going back fishing. But he'd stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time, yeah.
And you've mentioned a couple of times that, you know, you didn't treat your kids like he treated his kids. Did you ever notice anything where he treated his kids in any way what you would consider a normal father-son relationship?
No, sir. Like I said, you don't take your kids fishing to make them sit on the bank. You give them a pole and try to teach them how to fish. You know, something that'd make them proud of themselves.
You mentioned that you were aware that at some point Scott Wiggins shot his brother Troy.
Yes.
Was that common knowledge in the Wiggins household that he had shot his own brother?
Yeah, they were living at his mother's house. And a lot of the family, they had nowhere to go. Mom's not turning them out. And them boys show up, you know. Scott and Juanita was living there, and Troy come in, and the way I heard it,
Well, it's okay.
he smoked a joint. When Troy wanted him to smoke a joint, he smoked a joint with him, told him he'd cut him if he didn't smoke another one. He jumped out of the car and told him if he come in there bothering him, he'd shoot him. And when they didn't have a bedroom door. So when he opened up the curtain, he got shot. There wasn't no warning shot. He took a 20-gauge shotgun and shot him in the shoulder. I don't know how he was positioned when he got shot, but, you know, there wasn't a warning shot. I do know that.
So when you observed it, you testified a few minutes ago, Scott Wiggins would make comments to the boys like, if you don't get in your room, I'm going to kill you. How did the boys respond to that?
he went to the room. There was no arguing. You know what I mean? They were, like I said, he was a great intimidator. You know, I say great intimidator. You know, if you're 150 pounds, you got a 40-pound kid, he's gonna do what you tell him. And I'm sure if stood and argued with him, he would have probably grabbed one and slung it in there if he, you know, prove a point.
You mentioned he's not the kind of guy that would fire a warning shot.
Yeah, no, he wasn't the kind of guy, if he told you to do something, I believe you'd do it.
And you never saw the boys buck him, right? He did
No,
what they
sir.
told him.
No.
Did you ever observe Scott Wiggins using any kind of illegal drugs?
Marijuana. And he got on cocaine after Juanita left him. And I seen him with looked like an abscess. He had a knot the size of an egg on his arm where he tried to put something in there where he could intravenously shoot up dope. And it was just, it looked like an egg of nothing but blood. It couldn't have been his arm no more than this. He had an older brother, Michael, you know, he was a religious man.
Michael?
Michael always seemed to be a religious man to me, done the best he could. And he done what he could to keep Scott alive. He wouldn't give Scott money, but he'd take and get him a hamburger, you know, or,
And this was after?
this is all
After Juanita got away.
left, yeah.
Okay, okay. Mr. Webb, just again regarding when Stephen and Scotty were young, these behaviors you saw by their father, is that
Yeah.
something you saw consistently through their childhood?
Yes. Poor little Scotty's the oldest. And Scotty's one of them kids that stayed in his room. You know, you've seen people withdraw to themselves. That's Scotty. And he's done that from a young age. Stephen, one hyper, so, I'd say he got hollered at a lot more than Scotty. Scotty's the oldest brother, which I'm not saying he just picked on Stephen or Scotty either one. He'd just tell both of them, if they were out in the living room, somebody come in, hit it, you know, they knew. And Scotty done it without question. I mean, he's the oldest, he done it without question. And,
How did they appear to you when Scott would say things like that in your presence?
well, like I said, Scotty would withdraw. I mean, he just, if someone come in, if he was in the living room doing something or in the kitchen, he'd go straight to his room without being told, you know what I'm saying? He knew it was coming. Like I said, he would withdraw to himself. And you can see it today. You know, last time I seen him, he still acts the same. You know, he has a hard time dealing with people. And as far as I know, he's never been no trouble or anything like that. But he's one stay in his own little quad, and as long as the world's not bothering him, he's not going to bother them. You never hear anything out of him. You know what I'm saying? He just tries to stay invisible. That would be the best way to say it. Try to stay invisible.
And your observations are that started when he was a child?
That started when he was a child, and I think he's like that now because of childhood.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. I appreciate you being here.
Mr. Crouch?
Good evening, Mr. Webb. Excuse me. How are you? You spent quite a bit of time with Scott, is that correct?
We done a lot of fishing together. I'd go get them, and like crappie season, if I wasn't working or got rained out,
Well-
I'd try to crappie fish.
It sounds like you spent a lot more time than that. I mean, you've just recounted all of these stories and observations
Well-
of being around the boys and Juanita.
Yeah. Now, if I went and picked Scott up, there's never a process of you pulling up and him walking out to the truck or car and getting in. Scott carried enough fishing stuff for 4 or 5 people to fish. So if you pulled up to get him, it's gonna take him 30 minutes to get it ready.
Well, my point is, you spent a lot of time around this
Yes,
family.
Yes,
Quite a bit of time.
yes, sir.
And you never saw Scott hit either one of the boys.
I've not seen him smack him on the ass or something like that, but as far as taking a fist, no.
I mean, it sounds like you were around Scott and the family more than just about anybody
I
else.
grew up with Juanita. She went to school with my sisters.
And you never saw any violence towards Juanita, Scotty, or Stephen.
Just as far as physical violence, like I said, he might grab them and tell them, get in there and cuss them, but I've never seen them really physically hands-on. I don't believe in hitting a woman, and I darn sure wouldn't stand by and let them beat a kid.
Yes, sir. Had you seen something like that, you would have done something about it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Try to anyway.
Hey, and just to clarify, the defendant's father, his name is Scott.
Right.
The defendant, Stephen, has a brother named Scotty.
Gotti, yes.
Scotty, is he still alive?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, he's alive.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know, he is.
Well, I asked because the defendant a couple of years ago had said that Scott was dead. Scotty.
You have an objection?
I do.
Basis for your objection?
That's not what the testimony was. The testimony was he said a brother. That identifies Scott.
Overrule, this is cross-examination.
So Scotty, the defendant's brother, still alive.
Yes, sir. As far as I know, he is.
Thank you. Now, you also characterized Scott, the defendant's father, as, and I think I'm using your word, as ignorant,
Well,
not educated.
I was told one time, if you fool with smart people, you'll make smart decisions. If you fool with poor, I say poor people. It's not poor people. If you fool with ignorant people, you'll make ignorant decisions. Scott made a lot of ignorant decisions in his life.
You never saw him with a job.
No, sir, he didn't.
Never got
There was always the excuse, one time, for years he went around, he had bad teeth, he couldn't get a job. His mother paid to get all his teeth pulled, and then he couldn't get a job because he didn't have no teeth, It was always something.
Do you know if Scott got his GED?
I'm not for sure about that.
Okay. Do you know whether Scott ever held any specific jobs in any trades, like being a plumber?
No,
You know if he ever worked in sheet metal or went to work for the sheet metal union?
no.
Okay.
At one time, he joined, I'm not for sure what it is. He did work at Kingston Steam Plant, and that lasted for about a week or 2 weeks at the most.
Is it fair?
I don't know what craft he was down there with.
Is it fair to say that Stephen went a different path? I mean, he got his GED. Did you know that?
No, sir.
He did. Did you know he also was trained as a plumber
I know he worked with a plumber at one time.
and sheet metal?
Not sure about sheet metal.
Had you seen any use of marijuana or other drugs around the Stephen and Scotty? Would you have reported that?
Would I have reported that?
Yes, sir.
They smoked pot. I mean, that's,
Around you?
huh?
Around you?
Yeah, he smoked pot around.
As children?
No, never in front of the kids.
Okay, so Scott never smoked pot or did drugs around the kids?
Well, like I said, someone come over, he chased them to the room. And which the kids in the bedroom, they sitting in the living room smoking.
So if he was gonna smoke a joint, he'd make the kids go to their rooms? Based on your observations?
Yeah. If they run out of the room to go to the bathroom or something, I don't think he tried hiding it. But he, like I said, I'm sure they know what they were doing.
Fair enough. Thank you for your testimony.
Redirect?
Mr. Webb, you said on cross-examination that, I'm paraphrasing, but you wouldn't put up with somebody beating a woman, right?
No,
And you wouldn't put up with someone beating a child.
no. I believe that you bust a child's tail if they deserve it. I don't believe in abusing a child, leaving marks.
And so when the state asks you about what you observed, would it be fair to say that back in the day, Scott Wiggins knew you were that kind of man back then? You wouldn't put up with that?
There was a group of us, men that hung out together. We built houses together and hunt and fish together. And country guys that didn't sit well in no one's house. And we may not have been church-going men at that time, but, my wife and I have been together since '79. We don't put hands on each other. I don't believe in it. You gotta fight someone, stay with them. It's not worth staying. And my dad didn't do it. I don't do it. And wouldn't let my son do it.
So do you think, or do you know, if Scott Wiggins was aware of your stance on that kind of
Oh,
behavior?
yes, I'm sure.
You said there were a group of you, and would that have been something you as a group of men would have discussed back then? How you
Had
treat
just a
people?
way of life back then. Just country redneck guys, you want to call us that. But, you got up and went to work. You paid your light bill, you bought your groceries. Friday and Saturday nights, you want to hang out and put something on the grill, throw horseshoes and drink a beer or whatever. That's what we done. There was 5 or 6 couples meet up at someone's house. And that's what usually happened on Friday night, Saturday night.
So these times that you would go to Scott Wiggins' house, it wasn't a situation where you were there to watch whether he was beating Juanita or Scott
No,
and
we
Stephen?
didn't go. Like I said, Scott carried enough fishing stuff for 4 or 5 people to fish with. Even if you was going crappie fishing, he had a catfish rod. He had a wagon they used for years just to carry his fishing stuff. That steam plant, he'd bring so much. So like I said, if you went to get Scott to go fishing, you might as well get out and come in, because it's going to take 30 minutes to get it in the car. And that's just the way he was.
And I think you mentioned also in direct that, in response to what they asked you on cross about what you may or may not have seen, you mentioned that you didn't see the physical violence.
I didn't see the physical violence, but the mental abuse was always there.
And did you have any doubts later that the physical abuse occurred either?
After he tried shooting Juanita and the boy, yeah, I had no doubt that he was capable of it.
That's all.
Recross?
And Mr. Webb, was it 2001 when Miss Juanita took Stephen away from Scott? Early 2000s?
I guess. I mean, dates are,
Well, let me rephrase. It's been a long time ago. She took
Yes,
him
sir.
away from Scott.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Webb. You may step down and you are released from your subpoena. You may go about your business or have a seat in the courtroom. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Mr. Pete Schaffer.
Up here, sir. Stand right here, face the clerk, raise your right hand, be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Have a seat in the chair, try to speak directly into the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Schaffer.
Good evening.
If you don't mind, please state your full name for the benefit of the jury and spell your last name.
Peter Francis Maher Schaffer, Schaffer.
And where do you live, Mr. Schaffer?
105 Oak Park Drive, Dickson, Tennessee.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a plumber by trade.
And do you know Mr. Stephen Wiggins?
Yes, I do.
Right. How do you know Stephen Wiggins?
I originally met him. He worked for me. He came to work for me. So he worked for me and we became friends.
Okay. And so we started out as an employee and y'all developed a friendship over time, is that right?
Yes, sir.
How long have you known him?
Probably 10 years now, a little better.
And over that time, did you become close with other members of his family?
Yes, I did. His mother and his brother.
His mother, Juanita?
And little Sammy, yeah.
Okay, all right. And do you get to have the occasion to see Juanita and Scotty?
Yeah, yep. I've been to their, helped them move and been down to their house.
All right. Now, are you from Dickson originally?
No. From
Where are you from originally?
Northern Michigan.
Okay. I thought I caught some Michigan in that accent of yours.
Go blue.
Schaffer, pull that microphone towards you a little bit, please.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Thank you.
And you said you were a plumber. When did you first learn plumbing?
1994.
All right. And have you been doing plumbing ever since?
Yeah, pretty much. I've had a couple breaks from it, but yeah, 99% of the time.
All right. And what does it take to be a plumber? What kind of training?
It takes years and years of training. There's geez, you gotta know heating, you gotta know air conditioning, you've gotta know silver solder. You gotta know probably 5 different types of, well, probably 15 different types of pipe. You gotta know transitions. I mean, I think a master's degree is probably said correctly when you're talking about a plumber. It's not something you can learn in any, I'd say 6 years in the field, maybe.
Okay.
And then still with the blueprints and the bidding and everything, yeah. I mean, in order to become a master plumber, you really have to work at it.
You said to become a master plumber?
Yes, sir.
And is there something called a journeyman?
Yes, there is.
All right,
Yep,
what's,
and
what's the difference between the journeyman and the master plumber?
You can become a journeyman about 4 years into it, and then you can get certified by the state to be a journeyman. And what that is that it's an educated plumber, but even at that point, I would not say that you're a master plumber. You're educated and you know systems, but you still need guidance from a master plumber. I mean, you're still not at a level where you could be put in any situation and be able to handle it.
Okay. Have you owned your own business as a plumber over the years?
I've owned 3 of them, yes.
All right. And where was the first?
In Colorado, Copper Mountain, Colorado. Well, actually, we were out of Leadville.
And approximately when was that?
It was, let's see, probably 90.
Okay. And then about how long were you in Colorado?
I was out there for about 8-9 years.
All right. And did you go somewhere after that?
I went to San Diego, California.
And did you own your own business there then?
Yes, I did.
As a plumbing business?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Copper or Schaffer Mechanical out there.
All right. And then after San Diego, did you move back to Tennessee?
Yep.
And did you keep your business going when you made that move?
Yes, I did. And while I started a new one, you've got to start a new one every time, but yep.
And where was that located?
It was right where I live right now, right out of my house.
Okay. And in Dickson?
Yep.
And,
Matter of fact, the company that I sold to my brother Matt, we did the plumbing here.
oh wow, okay.
Yep, they just buttoned this job up.
So, tell me a little bit, or tell the jury rather, a little bit about how you met Stephen Wiggins.
It was through work. I believe that, not sure exactly where I met him. I mean, I've done so much hiring and everything, but I think it was like at a Walmart maybe or something where he came up and approached me for a job and I put him to work.
All right, and do you remember when you first hired him?
I mean, yeah, it was right at the beginning when I was first starting to get the plumbing company going, so it was right at the beginning.
And you say the beginning when
Within
you
the
first
first
got back to
year, I
Dixon?
think, before I was done with the first year in plumbing.
And what was his position? What did you hire him to do?
As a laborer.
Okay.
To start and learn the trade.
And as far as you knew, did Stephen know anything about plumbing when you first hired him?
No, he didn't.
And did you start to train him?
Absolutely, yep.
And what kind of jobs would you have him do when he first started working for you?
When you first do it, I mean, it's plumbing also deals with busting concrete and pouring back concrete and digging trenches. I mean, so labor, I mean, it's hard labor. So, I mean, you got to go to work. And as a company starting out, you have to bust your butt. I mean, we'd work long hours and hard hours, and that's what we'd start at. And then you learn the material by simply picking it up for the master or the journeyman, doing the project and actually putting it in. And as he watches you, you kind of teach him and explain to him why things are going in they are, however they're supposed to be going in. And
Well, when Stephen was doing the laborer task for you, was he a hard worker?
yeah, absolutely. One of the hardest guys, one of the hardest working guys I had. I mean, he was like a bull. He was kind of unstoppable. He almost wanted to prove himself, like to me or whatever. He'd show off, like he'd always grab the biggest rock out of the ditch. And he's strong, like really strong, just strong like a bull. I mean, kind of like a crazy strength, because he'd move stuff that I couldn't move, and I was just like, geez, and I was in shape and could move some heavy stuff. I just didn't think he didn't know that he couldn't move it.
Okay. And how about him making mistakes on the job?
Yeah, he made plenty, same as everybody does. But yeah, he made plenty of mistakes, that's for sure.
Did he ever seem a little off to you as far as when you were trying to teach him and
No, I mean, he was good at what he did, and he was learning. Would I say he was the quickest learner? No. I mean, he wasn't. But he stuck with it, and he was happy to do it. He was a hard worker, and he was happy to be there every day. I mean, he was a kind and, I don't know, gentle giant is kind of more what I'd say. I mean, if he could pick up a fridge by himself, he would do it to get it out of the way so I wouldn't have to pick up the other end. He'd push me out of the way or grab the demo saw so that I wouldn't have to, Pete, you're the boss, you're not supposed to be doing this. I'm like, I'm here to work, buddy. But so we, maybe banter back and forth about it. But no, he really went after it and wanted to succeed doing it.
Now, I can only imagine in plumbing there's some pretty dirty jobs that you have to do sometimes.
Oh yeah, there's some real nasty jobs. I've been up to my neck in human feces.
And was Stephen all in for working those jobs as well?
Yeah, he would go clear a line. He wasn't afraid to get in. He would do whatever it took, no matter what.
And how would you describe Stephen's demeanor, his personality when you were on the job?
Like I said, he was always jovial. He kept the mood up for the guys and everything. He worked hard and he played around with everybody, and made sure stuff was getting done and kind of challenged other guys to better themselves.
And if you had to sum up his personality in a couple words during the times when you were working with him, how would you describe it?
Great guy to work with. He was fantastic. He was a pleasure to work with, because there's some guys that get all upset in their work and they're just like get frustrated or whatever, and it can bring down a crew. So to have a guy that has that positive attitude, it really helps out.
And did you spend time with him outside of work?
Yes, yep.
And
We'd have barbecues and we'd have 4th of July parties and rent boats and sure, I'd make sure to take care of the guys. I wanted a top-notch crew.
And did he ever do any work for you outside of plumbing?
Yeah, yep. As a matter of fact, even after I'd sold my company to my brother Matt, they needed some work, him and another friend Kenny, and I put him to work helping me out with the yard. And again, happy, hard-working guy, and they cleared like the woods behind my house to make it look a little cooler. Hang hammocks out there and, you know, be able to walk through the woods instead of it just being grown up ivy and stuff like that.
And did you know that during your time around Stephen that he had a son named Spencer?
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
And how'd you meet Spencer?
I think when I first met him, he was just a tyke, and we met down at the bridge when we went bridge jumping. I'm saying trestle from my childhood, but we go and we jump off this bridge into the water down at Bucksnort, and it's crazy because now they're at that same little area. If you jumped off of it, you'd break your legs because it's about 6 inches deep. But when he introduced me to it, it was deep enough to obviously jump the 20 foot into the water. But that's when I think I first met Spencer.
And did you have an opportunity to see Stephen around Spencer?
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, we were out there with the kids.
And when
Hanging out.
How did he interact with Spencer? What did you observe?
They'd play with each other in the water. He would, you know, take them around. The kid was a little dynamo too. Reminded me just of Stephen. I mean, just little bulldog, just strong for his size and everything. Just a powerful kid. Beautiful kid. Just, I mean, a smile on his face and running around. Really had a blast that day.
And when you were able to observe, he appeared to be having a good time with his daddy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, he loves his dad.
And
That's for sure.
And speaking of Spencer, were you around Stephen when he first found out he was going to be a dad?
He told me about it, yeah. Yep,
And-
he was excited.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like regular father reaction. He was really excited. He was going to have a boy, or well, a kid at the time.
So, was there a time back in 2013 where you had a heart attack?
Yeah, yep, a really bad one, as a matter of fact. Pretty nasty little heart attack. It dropped me to the floor. I blacked out, fell straight into the hole.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So first off, the day you had the heart attack, was Stephen with you?
Yep, it was me and Steven, and we had worked pretty much all day, and we had promised this older couple that was retiring to a farm out in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't tell you the address, but it was probably maybe an hour and a half from Dickson, and we wanted to get their water on because they had horses and animals and stuff, and we wanted to make sure because they were struggling trying to keep these, you know, animals with water. And then of course they're an older couple, so we wanted to make sure that they had water. So we went up there, and we were putting the well pipe or the pump back into the well.
And what's a well house? I don't want to interrupt you, but what's a well house even look like?
Okay,
Can you describe
there
it?
is. I mean, they come in different sizes. It's basically a box that protects the equipment of the well. You have an expansion tank. You have manifolds. This one, I think, even had like a light, one of those lights that kills bacteria, the UV light protection type of system, and manifolds so that it goes both, you know, up to the barn and then the one down to the house. So you have it so water runs both ways. The expansion tank. So you build protection around it so that stuff doesn't get rusted on. Well, the way that this guy had built it was about probably 6 or 8 foot wide by 5 foot wide, and about 6, 7 foot tall. It was tall because we had to use a 6 foot ladder to get up and over and into the tank, into the pit itself. And then it was an A-frame roof, and you had to like push it up and prop it. There was no door to it or anything, but you had to push it up and prop it. But it was, I mean, it looks like a shed. They had it designed kind of like a shed that you'd see maybe if you're buying a shed or rent-own shed type of thing.
But no doors. You had to
No
climb
doors.
it.
You had to go over the top.
So, describe for the jury how it happens that you start having issues with your heart when you're in the
Okay,
12?
well, like I said, it was probably coming on to our 12th, 14th hour of work. We had worked all day. And the farmer asked if he could help us, get the well in because it's getting dark. And of course, we're 2 people. And we could use the help. He had helped us pull it with the tractor. And so to drop it back in, we were going to need the third hand. And so Stephen climbed into the well house and he was going to guide it so that because it's got the wires on it and it's a pipe with wires and then a rope, you can't have that hit the walls. Otherwise, it'll cut the lines and then you're back to square one, or you've got to patch it so that it'll work. And I mean, to track down a line, if it hits the sides, then it can be a real issue, and it can take, especially at night, you're probably never going to find it. But so he was down there, and then I'm holding it off the top of the roof where it's the 2x6 for the house, and had it between my legs, and I was having to hand over hand keep it off from the top corner so the same thing wouldn't happen. It wouldn't get pinched in the wood. And the farmer just decided that he was going to get that pump down there at his speed, which was pretty quick. So I was just trying to keep it up off of the edge. And so once we got it in there and we finally set it and everything, I mean, I was exhausted, but I went down. And I mean, we're using flashlights at this point to finish the thing off. And we went to move the thing to turn it into position so that we could tie it in. And that's when I dropped.
Okay.
I blacked out. I fell down to the ground.
And what's the first thing you remember happening when you came to?
Steven was getting a hold of me, and then he's shaking me and kind of waking me up, and he's like, Pete, are you okay? Are you all right, man? And I was just oblivious. I mean, kind of out of it. I didn't know what had just happened. I didn't know what was going on. And I was kind of coming to or whatever, but he started picking me up, and he brought me up the ladder and set me up on top of the wall. And at that point, kind of went up and held me up there. And the farmer had come up and helped steady him. And then Stephen came around and grabbed me and brought me down so that I was on the outside of the well house.
And so
I could barely walk. I was so exhausted that I couldn't move. I mean, like it was everything I could do to walk to the truck. And that even took some help in balance and everything to get over there.
And at that point in time, did you realize that you had a major heart attack?
No, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what the heck is going on? I still was like dazed and confused, had no idea. And I didn't know it was a heart attack. I figured something was seriously wrong, though. I mean, obviously.
And what happened next?
Well, Steven's like, we're getting to the hospital. We're rushing to the hospital. And the homeowner's like, yeah, you guys got to go. And I was like, no, you're going to finish the well. These people need water. And so I told him, and so Steven, argued with me, and I was like, no, we're going to finish it. And it's like, man, these people need water. They've been struggling on it. And we're not going to get anybody here first thing in the morning. And who are we going to get out here? Who's going to be able to guide you if you don't know? And I was trying to think, and I couldn't figure it out. So we stayed, and I had Steven finish it up, which means he went down back into the well house and pulled on the thing. Like I told you, the strength of this man is incredible. But he pulled on this thing because it's a good 300 plus hose, 1-inch line of PEX with a pump on the end of it and the wire and the rope. And he turned it and got it in a position and tightened the whole thing up. And we had already pretty much had everything else buttoned up. So that was really kind of the last stuff that we needed to do. So it took us maybe another 10, 15 minutes to button the project up, kick the system on. Thank God it came on first shot and worked. And then he proceeded to break the speed limit, bringing me to the hospital.
And once you got to the hospital, did you eventually get told what had happened to you?
Yeah, that's when they told me that I had a heart attack and that I was an idiot for sticking around there for the extra 15 minutes, and that my count of something was way too high. And they immediately rushed through me into an ambulance and rushed me down to Nashville for an emergency procedure. Stent, I guess, or whatever they did. I guess they stabilized me and then sent me to Nashville.
And you obviously...
You saved my life.
And you know why you're here today, right?
I do.
And, you
I know I would, if I wouldn't allow me to be here, yeah. Yep. I'd dare to say if it was anybody that wasn't as strong as him. I mean, people do have that strength, and I hear, little ladies lifting cars off of people, children and stuff like that. That was a miracle type of thing. Pretty amazing.
And you understand, you've been told that this jury's here determining what sentence to give Stephen for what he did to Sergeant Baker.
Yep, I do understand that. And it's just amazing to me that to think that taking a life, for somebody to take in a life is just makes any kind of sense. I mean, doesn't forgiveness begin like healing? I just can't understand it.
Let me ask you this.
I don't think perpetuating poor decisions is a good thing. It scares me to think that that's where we're at, or even allowed to think right now. Or,
Counsel approach Avenger. Let me, for the record, state we've been going since 9 o'clock this morning, and our court reporter is just about exhausted, so we're not going to be able to go any much further than this. My concern is this: for the very reasons that we had a hearing and I limited what Ms. Baker could state in her victim impact statement based upon the case law and the rulings of our Supreme Court, that it's irrelevant what a person thinks as far as the punishment goes. You cannot have a witness testify as to what they want the jury to do or not do regarding the punishment phase. I excluded Mrs. Baker's testimony regarding that in her victim impact statement in an effort to avoid any kind of error that might lead to some sort of a reversal simply because of allowing something that might violate what the Supreme Court has ruled. Mr. Evans, your question to this witness about does he understand what we're here for and what this jury is going to have to decide, in my opinion, invites the same kind of information from this witness about what he wants this jury to do. And that's the reason that I called for a consultation. I'll allow you to address it, but it certainly seems to me that it's inappropriate and would be wrong to allow him to testify about that. And at best, I can instruct this jury that they're not allowed to consider his wishes regarding that. But if you want to address the question again and have him answer it, I want to do it outside the presence of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor. And just for the purpose of the record, my question to him, I wanted to ask him if he knew why he was here. And
Why would that matter?
Because, Your Honor, this jury is allowed to consider any mitigating factor. It's different from victim impact. The Supreme Court allows them to consider the impact that Mr. Wiggins' execution would have on people who know him and his loved ones. And that's allowable. And my next question it was, do you know why you're here? And if he were to be executed, what kind of an effect would that have on you? And Your Honor, that's an appropriate question. That's allowed by Supreme Court precedent. And that's the question I intended to ask. And I didn't elicit anything about what punishment he should receive. And that was not my intention of the question.
Mr. Crouch?
Judge, first, I think that the door has already been opened by the defense through this line of questioning. I mean, Mr. Schaffer respectfully was allowed to give a lengthy bit about his feelings on the death penalty, why it should not be imposed, why one death should not invite another death. With that said, Your Honor, there is no distinction between that and what Ms. Baker was not allowed to say. She should also be allowed to testify the mirror image of what Mr. Schaffer has just testified to. And we will be moving for her testimony to be allowed.
Gentlemen, we're going to stop right at this point. My court reporter is exhausted. We're not going to go any further. This witness will remain under subpoena, and will resume his testimony in the morning first thing. I'll rule on what exactly is going to be the result of what has transpired before we start at 9 o'clock in the morning. But I'm going to bring the jury in and explain to them at this point that they are to disregard his statements unless tomorrow morning I give them further instructions. So bring the jury in.
Judge, before the jury comes back in, I would ask Your Honor not to admonish the jury until Your Honor's rule on the issue.
I'll do that much. I will. Mr. Crouch, I'm going to simply stop where we are and tell them that I'm going to consider some matters and that I will address them tomorrow morning. I will also tell them not to discuss this matter between themselves until I've given further instructions. We're ready for the deal. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
I was just waiting.
I thought he could read my mind. Ladies and gentlemen, the hardest job in this entire process is being performed by this young lady right in front of me. She has to take down every word that is said in this courtroom. Even when we're up here whispering, she still has to be able to hear what we're saying because it becomes a record. Her job is extremely important, and we have worn her out. And I'm of the opinion that it would be unwise for us to continue further tonight. So we are going to adjourn until in the morning at 9 o'clock when we'll resume with Mr. Schaffer's testimony. I would just instruct you again, there may be other instructions I give you in the morning about some things that have been said, but at this point I just want you to understand that don't discuss this case among yourselves. Don't form any opinion about anything that you've heard. Just let all of the evidence come in and the final instructions before you discuss anything else. So at this point, I'm going to allow Mr. Schaffer, if you want to step down.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
have you come back in the morning at 9 o'clock, and we will adjourn for the evening. Thank you for your cooperation, and if you'll step with the bailiffs, then he'll return you. All right, we're adjourned until 9 o'clock in the morning. I will address this issue first thing.
All right.